evening, everyone. We are so glad you're here, and my name is Rosemary Latham, and on behalf of the Southwest Volusia Democratic Club, I would like to welcome each of you to the CD7 Candidate Forum. We are very fortunate tonight to have two of the three Democratic candidates for CD7. We have Marialana Kinter, and we have Bale Dalton. Now, you all are here tonight to hear what our candidates have to say. So please, if at any point you have difficulty hearing me or hearing them, please let us know so we can rectify that. We do not want you all struggling to hear, and we certainly don't want you to misunderstand anything that they may be saying. So don't be shy about letting us know if you have a problem. The format for tonight, how we are going to start, we will be giving each candidate the opportunity to introduce themselves. They will have 3 minutes to speak on their candidacy. Each candidate will be asked the same question, and we are going to alternate who responds first. They will be timed, and candidates in the back of the room, we have Carol Dries. She is your official timekeeper, and she will hold up the signs just so that you have a visual cue as to how much time you have remaining. And we do this all in the air of fairness so that everyone gets equal time. The questions that we are asking this evening have been pre-submitted questions. A lot of you asked questions online. We had some questions pre-formulated. And as we could, I tried to blend the questions so that we could try to glean the most information we could from our candidates with each question. Not sure if we're going to have time at the end of the forum in order to ask a specific question that you may have for either one. Perhaps you can have a little bit of one-on-one time with them. At the end of the question and answer session, each candidate will have the opportunity to give closing remarks. They, at that time, can certainly clarify anything that may have come up, if that's indeed what they want to do, but they will have 3 minutes each to give some closing remarks. With that, we are going to begin our evening. I will start first with reading the biographies, brief biographies of each of the candidates, and then we'll get to the crux of the matter this evening. First, we have Bale Dalton. Bale is a decorated Navy captain and former chief of staff at NASA who has always answered the call to serve America. A graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, Bale has served in the U.S. Navy and Navy Reserve for 24 years. He spent 13 years on active duty deploying to Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Horn of Africa and the Pacific. As a Navy helicopter pilot, Bale flew search and rescue flights in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, medical evacuation missions in Kuwait, special operations missions in Iraq and Africa, and directed combat air support with the Navy SEALs in Afghanistan. After active duty, he worked for Senator Bill Nelson in Congress, helping Florida veterans access the care they needed and benefits they had earned. Bale returned to active duty as commanding officer of the Navy's Special Operations Support Helicopter Squadron, then used his military background to improve efficiency and operations at an aerospace company in the private sector. As NASA Chief of Staff, he managed 16,500 employees and helped run one of the federal government's most effective agencies. Bale was raised in a hardworking Central Florida family and is committed to lowering the cost of living and making it easier for Floridians to get ahead. We have with us as well Marialana Kinter. Marialana Kinter is a U.S. Navy veteran and candidate for Florida's 7th Congressional District. She joined the Navy's elite nuclear power program at just 17 years old and later served aboard the USS Nimitz before becoming the Navy's nuclear field liaison for New York City and Long Island, where she led more than 300 STEM outreach events. After being medically retired from the Navy, Marialana later lost her job during workforce reductions she described as being doged. She says that experience, along with seeing thousands of other hardworking Americans lose their livelihoods because of political culture wars, inspired her to run for Congress. Kinter is running a grassroots campaign to fight for Medicare for all, universal child care, expanded Social Security, and to end forever wars, and campaign finance reform to get big money out of politics and ensure every... So with this, we are now going to allow each of our candidates 3 minutes. And, you know, I will give you the option if you want. Some are uncomfortable being seated. If you want to stand, you certainly can do that. This is a casual. We want to learn about you. And if you are more comfortable standing, please feel free to do so. You don't have to be confined to your seat. Do we have a coin?
We could not find a coin.
Okay, so what
Where are you going to find a coin?
you won't find a penny, but you might find something else.
You want my credit card?
Or what we can do, okay, you all, we're going to pick a number between 1 and 10. I'll tell you what the number is, and whoever's closer will go first. How's that?
Whoever's closer goes first.
You got a quarter?
You got a quarter?
Wow.
Well, now we don't know who's going to call it. Come on, man. All right.
Go in alphabetical order.
Pick a number between 1 and 10.
3.
7. What was the number?
7.
No. That works. So Marialana goes first, and you have 3 minutes to speak to the people. It should just pull out. It should pull out. And then Tess, make sure you've got a good mic.
Can you all hear me? Crystal clear. Howdy everyone, I'm Marialana Kinter, former mechanic, Navy veteran, working class candidate for Congress in Florida's 7th District. And I am running because in the last year alone, I was medically retired from the military. I began a new job, began a new civilian life, and was labeled DEI as a beneficiary of veterans in employment. And I looked up and saw Congress cheering as thousands of veterans, thousands of federal employees lost their jobs. And they said, this is how we make America great again. Everybody who wasn't in Congress became the enemy. Whether you were an immigrant, LGBTQ, just not rich enough, couldn't afford to trade the stocks they were. You became the enemy because you aren't a special interest group. And we deserve better. We deserve better than a representative who is going to sit in Congress and make millions as our families fall further behind. In the last year, my husband, who's an aerospace engineer at NASA, was furloughed for months on end with an unknown date, along with thousands of other federal employees. And we deserve better. In the last year, we've done countless mutual aid drives, food drives for homeless veterans, clothing drives for single mothers, luggage drives for foster children. And not once did I hear that people were happy with the leadership that we had in Congress. Not once did I hear they wanted more culture awards. They wanted a life in Florida where the working class could thrive, where their children had job opportunities, where the water wasn't used up by AI data centers. because we deserve better. And this doesn't just have to be another American dream, because every day that we operate the way that we are, the American dream becomes that we open our eyes and it's gone. We deserve a Congress that works for every single person in this room. And we're building that together. From our 500 volunteers to canvassing every day to an average donation of $21. We are building a Florida where every single person can live authentically, can have a future, and can grow up and know they have their own American dream that's attainable. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to hear the questions. Thank you, guys.
And Vale, you also have 3 minutes.
We were bragging on the setup, though. It's pretty nice to have a chair and water and a pen and pad. We were joking about as sailors, where we used to have to carry, our blue brains is what aviators call it, but our small brains in our pocket wherever we went. So it is great to be here, and it is great to have our bios read, because we can get right into the meat of why we are running. And my name is Vale Dalton. I was born and raised here in Central Florida. And so this is a pretty emotional journey for me, this journey to try to represent the folks of Seminole and Volusia County and do what I think we all can agree on, which is provide better and more responsible leadership that's representing us and representative of us in Washington, D.C. It's, as you've heard, I've had quite a few adventures in my life. And they have all been great lessons learned to me. And basically, I owe every one of those adventures and every one of those opportunities to the folks here in Central Florida who raised me. I have a lot of my family members here tonight, which I'm very proud of, and who raised me and taught me as teachers, mentors, neighbors, Boy Scout leaders. And so that's why I say that this is truly an emotional journey for me to try to give of myself in public service now in another way here in Central Florida. My Navy adventure started at the Naval Academy. Both of us started very young in our Navy adventures. I went off to the Naval Academy right after high school at Edgewater High School, so I'm an Orange County Public Schools kid. And September 11th happened in the first week of my first semester of my senior year. So the Navy that I entered into when I signed my paperwork at 17 years old, and the Navy that I entered into on commissioning day on May 24th was very different. You've heard that I've been out there in combat, leading sailors in combat, and possibly the greatest honor of my life was being a commanding officer and taking care of 450 patriots that were out there doing the hard work every day in pretty scary times and pretty scary operations. And also trying to take care of them as they tried to take care of their families and prepare them for the worst should that happen. I also got the chance to serve on behalf of Floridians for Senator Nelson when he was our senator, making sure something very near and dear to my heart, which is that our veterans here in Florida were getting the care that they needed and the benefits that they earned, which was quite in question in 2014 in terms much of the time that I was there. And then you heard about NASA. Look, again, another incredible honor to lead people that were putting service above self, putting their country above, these are engineers and scientists and researchers that could go work for any company. And to have them working on behalf of our country was such an honor to be able to lead them. And I want the honor of your vote to help lead this community in DC. Thank you.
Thank you, each of you. I do want to remind everyone, please silence your cell phones. Pick them up and check them now, because sometimes we think they're silenced, and indeed they are not. If we do hear it go off, we will be very thankful for your $5 donation to Southwest Volusia Democratic Club, and Rob will be more than happy to come tap you on the shoulder and accept that donation. So now we will be getting into basically the meat of the evening, where we will start question and answer sessions. Vale, you will go first. And question number 1. And we have our timekeeper in the back as well. She's ready to go
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
I'm aware.
Floridians face multiple challenges, including the effects of climate change, homeowners insurance rates, housing availability and affordability. What specific policies will you champion that directly addresses the district's needs? Which of these will you prioritize first? And what measurable results should voters expect from you?
Well, we have gotten into the meat here because I think us as Floridians, we are here for a reason, whether we were born here or have chosen to spend a retired life here or have, brought our families here for one reason or another. And most of that reason is because of the incredible natural resources that we have. And I don't have to tell anybody in this room, since we're all District 7 residents, what a great piece of land we have to live on here. I talk about to some folks, growing up as a Boy Scout on Wekiva Springs, all the way out to fishing with friends on Indian River Lagoon. So our natural resources are top of mind for me and protecting them. We talk at the local level a lot about our rural boundary and the need to protect it from overdevelopment and overzealous developers that seem to think that they're above the rules. And we've had representation both in Tallahassee and DC that seems to not understand how important that is to us. I understand how important it is to us because it's made me who I am today. And when we talk about development, we know that there is a need. We know that we are absent a supply of affordable housing. I was talking to somebody just the other day on door knocking, and we were chatting about the stat that's just come out in the New York Times that says how many people under the age of 35 are still living with their parents. That's not necessarily, look, we know our parents love us, but they want us to go have the same benefits that they had and the same life adventures and building families and building, a nest egg of their own. And that's just unacceptable to have here in the United States. And I think what we've seen that's been one of the major problems on our housing issue is people seem to think that housing is not a basic need. They see it as a money-making opportunity to charge rents and to charge prices that are so much higher than our young people can afford, or even folks that have been in the workplace for long enough to have been able to achieve that. And one of the things that's most disappointing to me, especially when I talk to folks who feel like they're almost there, we're almost ready to put down a down payment. We almost feel like we can afford that mortgage payment every month. Well, now you're faced with almost a second mortgage payment when you talk about all the other rising costs here. Property insurance, right? We've seen our smaller insurances leave this state because smaller insurance providers leave this state because there's been no regulation or oversight on whether people are getting what they paid for. And we've got insurance companies that are taking advantage of us in our times of need rather than giving us the support that we pay for every month. And so I think we need more oversight of our insurance companies, and we need to create an environment where more insurance companies are coming in. And we can't do that without having true development plans which are based in the community and based on our opinions of where we should build and how we should build in order to take care of our residents. Thank you.
Marialana, do you want me to repeat, or are you okay?
I'm okay, thank
Good.
you.
Okay.
So first I want to address the fact that we did just see a bipartisan housing bill, right? Which is a great start, but that bill does not go far enough. The first step in one of the policy priorities is closing the loopholes in that. There are houses for sale in Florida. That is not the issue. The issue is that the houses are not being sold to the people who live in Florida. They are being sold to private equity, to PE, to developers, to Wall Street. And we need to ensure that the houses that exist here are being sold to the families that live here, so that people who are growing up know that they will eventually be able to buy and afford a house in the community that they love, so that grandparents will know their grandchildren will be able to afford to live in the neighborhoods they grew up in. People in Florida deserve to have homes that they can afford, and they deserve to understand when a natural emergency happens, you will have the resources, not because you live in an affluent area, but because there are metrics set in place that trigger responses from FEMA, from NOAA, and you will be able to access the money that exists in the emergency fund. The first step after closing the loopholes in the bipartisan housing bill is to get money, real estate, Wall Street, and brokers out of our political conversations, to end their ability to buy our politicians when we have the Real Estate Association being one of the largest lobbyists paying our politicians to allow them to have these loopholes when they introduce legislation. So that the legislation that's being passed isn't beneficial to the people who are paying the taxes and paying their salaries. Every single person in Central Florida understands that housing is a human right. It's a basic right. You cannot function without a roof over your head. I live in a house with 8 other people. With my siblings, their children, my other siblings, their children, my husband. Because right now, homeownership for people is a dream, another American dream. The average age for buying a home is 42 years old. That is inexcusable. We need to build legislation of Florida, a community and a Congress that works for the working class, and that starts with policy, not opinions. Thank you.
Question 2, Marialana, you will go first. What is one federal program you believe is wasting taxpayer money, and what is your plan to reform or eliminate it without harming vulnerable Floridians?
It's an excellent question. I would say the biggest form of federal waste right now is the retirement package that Congress has after 6 years of work. We have hundreds of representatives that it's not qualified based on how you perform the job. In the military, and Bale will agree with this, you get an honorary discharge, you get an honorable discharge, and other than honorable or a dishonorable. Congressional representatives, hundreds of them, can go and do any work, sometimes none, for 6 years and have benefits for the rest of their life. And they're the same people saying that you don't deserve a pension, you don't deserve health care. They don't even have to show up to work. We have congressional reps who have been missing in action for months on end, and they will reap salaries that are multiple times the average salary of their average constituent. They will own homes that are greater than we can imagine in our lifetime if you're below 45. They will gain access to retirement packages, pension packages, and they have to do nothing to earn it. We have to have a service-based, performance-based package available to them, not one that is just bought in and every single person who's paying taxes is going to pay for that for the rest of their lives. Whether they hold office for 45 years or 6 years, and then they will have every benefit they're trying to take away from the people who live in Central Florida. Final answer.
I think that's a great idea. I think that I hadn't even thought of that before. I think to hold our Congress folks and elected representatives and appointed officials as well, by the way, to a standard of performance and to a standard of whether they're going to reap any benefits from the work that they've done, to have that the same standard that we were held to. So I like that. The question was one federal program, and I think it's always a difficult question to answer because there are so many. And I also think, sort of on the lines with what you've just heard, one of the things that is infuriating to me, if you go through sort of each of the opportunities I've had in my life, whether it was in the Navy, in the Senate, or at NASA, I would really like to look at acquisition reform throughout our whole government. And the problem here is that when this president came into office and talked about making government work more efficiently, what has happened through DOGE, and we've already heard that folks here have experienced that personally, what happened is we lost our best and brightest out of the government, the folks that are doing that job out of a sense of service to others. And what we've seen now through an over-privatization throughout our government is we've seen folks get sweetheart contracts. We've seen that exponentially with this administration and with this Congress, and in particular here in District 7 in our incumbent, we've got basically someone who just rubber stamps that. And so we've got folks now, the reason why we have such incredible corruption and grift in our system, and it's increasing, is because this current Congress has changed the rules of the game on how we are having folks support, whether it happens to be where we get our driver's license, sometimes where we register to vote, certainly what types of folks are fixing our roads and picking up our trash. When those contracts are not being negotiated for lowest price and best performance, that's when we start to have this pay-for-play system that we have been watching happen for so long with our representatives in Congress, namely Corey Mills, just thinking that that's the right thing to do so long as they are getting their kickback from those companies that go up and lobby them. So I think acquisition reform is something that we can take on right now. Also, I know one thing that we agree on is $1.5 trillion for a Defense Department that can't pass an audit and was supposed to have been passing an audit for the last 15 years. When we talk about getting accountability back in Congress, that's not just making new laws. That's making sure people are being held accountable to the laws that are already passed, instead of just passing it along as a campaign slogan for the next time that they need to get reelected. So that's what I would say is acquisition reform, and I think if we had 3 hours here, the two of us could come up with a laundry list. So.
This next question, Bale, you will answer first. That's okay.
It is way better for us to stand up because we can see you in the back.
See better. And can you all see Carol, or would you like her to move up a little bit?
See Carol.
You can see Carol? Okay, all right.
Making herself known.
I don't want to get the hook, okay? All right. What is your position on immigration enforcement practices, including the current activities of ICE? Do you support policies that would limit detention or removal actions for individuals who have already been approved for temporary protective status and are awaiting adjudication of their asylum cases? And how would you balance humanitarian considerations with federal enforcement priorities?
It's good that we can take notes because these are in-depth questions. But that's good that they are in-depth questions, because immigration and immigration reform and immigration enforcement is an in-depth problem. And we know that immigration as a whole in our country has been broken for decades. Just like I kind of mentioned, I think that there are fewer and fewer folks that go to Congress who are willing to roll up their sleeves and actually come up with a solution to it, because it is a problem that they can harp on that divides us, and it's a problem that they can harp on for sloganeerings to get themselves reelected, and they are forgetting the fact that human people are involved in this. And not just human people who have come here for a better life and are trying to do the right thing and are playing by the rules and are awaiting an actual official status while being allowed to be here under our rules. This affects us all as our communities and neighborhoods. This continuous, news and politicians dividing us and trying to figure out who's the best villain out there and turning us against ourselves. I'm pretty tired of being told I have to hate my neighbor. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. Now, look, I was served in the military, as you guys well know, 24 years. I was overseas fighting terrorists on 3 different fronts. And when I was on the FOB, and when I was in the helicopter, and when I was overseas fighting terrorists, I wore the American flag on my shoulder, I wore a name tag on my uniform, and I did not wear a mask. And so I don't understand why it's become a political issue to hold law enforcement accountable to the same standards that we would ask of our neighborhood and community police that are our friends and neighbors trying to protect and serve here in our communities. And as far as holding people, and taking people up off the street, this is not law enforcement. This is creating chaos and creating more dangerous situations. Now, many of you who know me and have heard me talk before know that border security is very high priority for me. I think border security is fundamental to our national security and fundamental to our economic security. But you cannot enforce the law by breaking the law. You cannot enforce the law by infringing on the very civil rights that we have ensconced in the paperwork I call our American scripture that provides us with these rights. It provides us with the right to be secure in our neighborhoods. And even if we have some friends and neighbors who agree with this administration and agree with this being top of mind, we were told they'd be going after violent criminals. We were told they'd be going after the drug trade. We see that that is not happening, and that is not acceptable. So look, we know that this Congress, with Corey Mills as our representative, has funded DHS and ICE as part of it for the next 3 years. So what can we do today to fix this is we can stand up and say, you're at least going to be held accountable to the same standards we would expect our neighborhood police. And you are going to be trained to the level that you should be trained to operate in the arenas that you do and with the firearms that you have. Because what's happening right now is unacceptable.
I do not believe in an open border policy. I agree that our borders and a strong national security is extremely paramount to America's investment in the future, our innovation in the future, our communities. That being said, we cannot have a paramilitary force roaming our streets anonymously, masked, with no body cam requirements, no independent investigation requirements, able to violate your rights. This makes every American less safe. My husband is a first-generation citizen. My family, his family, are from Colombia and they're from Mexico. And they are contributing members of the society. And when we talk about immigration reform, and I talk about it a lot, at a local level, at a state level, and a national level, because millions of Floridians and millions of United States citizens are also talking about their families. Their families, our community members, our neighbors, our husbands, our wives, are being demonized. They're becoming the enemy because, again, it's profitable for the people in office. It is unacceptable and we need a path forward. It's funded for 3 more years. What can we do now? In the military, when continued operation proves a continued risk and a greater risk than halting activity, we do what's called a safety stand-down. It's a complete halt of all operations, a complete third-party investigation, and no operations continue until every corrective action is completed from an independent agency. And in nuclear power, we take that very seriously. There's no reason that when American citizens are being killed on the streets, our government should take that any less seriously. We need to redirect funding, not into having more paramilitary agents who have proven a lack of training in stressful situations roaming our streets, but in the approval or denial process. Nobody in this room, hopefully, wants criminals in our community crossing the border, dealing drugs, doing any number of those things. And the way that we prevent that is by having a secure, efficient screening system so that the people who are trying to build better lives can come to the United States, can raise their children with the same opportunity we were afforded simply for being born here. And so that we can ensure criminals do not cross the border. What we're doing now is unsustainable and there is a path forward. We just don't have the political will yet.
Our next question, Marialana, you get to go first. What is the biggest failure of the current or previous congressional leadership affecting CD7, and how would you correct these failures?
I have to tailor this specifically to CD7, but it's pretty much a universal answer in that Congress has ceded their power. Congress has allowed the executive branch, the judicial branch, to consolidate power that is supposed to be reserved to the legislative branch. The power of the purse, we've seen the executive branch, which essentially right now is governance by executive order. We've seen them accumulate power to withhold or say they will withhold funding to states. That is not allowed. We've seen them cede the power of the purse. We've seen them cede the power to check the executive branch at overreaches using our military. The branch that is supposed to control and authorize military use and continued military operations, as it were, has completely handed over that power. And every single time that a piece of legislation is introduced, Corey Mills has approved it. He has signed off on it, and he has become the president's lapdog. Because he is seeking his next people who live and work in Central Florida and are voting for him or against him. It's a betrayal of every single person who lives in Florida, what he is doing. And his continued support and continued voting to allow this accumulation of power and stripping away from power from Congress is the number one failing, because it is holding hostage any progress we can make across legislative priorities. And when I talk to Republicans, independents, and Democrats, they all agree. The Constitution is clear. In Article 1, it outlines what the role of Congress is. And every single day, they continue to cede more of these responsibilities. And every single time, Republicans and constitutionalists point that out. We were at a Republican forum the other day, last week, and the first question was, define the role of Congress, and how do you think Congress has failed to uphold it? That was the number one question, because that is not partisan. What the Constitution says and is written in there and outlines our liberties and outlines what the Constitution or the country should follow is clear as day. And we need to take that power back.
I think the number one failure of this Congress that has affected us negatively here in CD7 is allowing Corey Mills to still be in Congress. What we've seen, and first of all, I love that answer and I agree wholeheartedly with it. But what has had the most effect on us today is allowing our elected representatives to play by a different set of rules than those of us who are playing by the rules and the laws here. We have a Congress that is completely unable to police itself when it comes to sexual assault and sexual harassment. Completely unable to police themselves on trading on insider information to enrich themselves. They're lining their pockets by picking our pockets. This is a failure that we have seen just be exacerbated. And here in CD7, no one has to tell this group or the two of us, we know what that biggest failure is. It's the fact that Corey Mills is there for himself, for his selfish reasons, and not to represent us. And what has that led to? It's led to a rubber stamp of another war in the Middle East with no strategic value, where we have had over 12 people killed. And the reason why I don't say a number is because we know they're not telling us the number. Over 500 people injured. Our bases overseas destroyed or at least disrupted. I have sailors in my command that have been mobilized for this war. And you know where they're mobilized to? Places back here in the United States and not where the fight is, because we're unable to execute the fight from where it's supposed to be. We also have a rubber stamp in Corey Mills that's let illegal tariff taxes be put on by this president. And who's paying the cost for that? We're paying the cost for that. Our small businesses are getting squeezed on both ends with raw materials prices increasing. They can't raise their prices enough because they'll lose customers. What happens when they lose customers? They can't keep employees on. Well, we're the employees. We need a job to take care of our families. And for too long, we need a job to even have health care insurance. And now our families are one health emergency away from a family catastrophe because, again, this Congress has abdicated its responsibility. It's a crisis of Congress's own making and letting these ACA subsidies expire. So the biggest problem with Congress affecting us in CD7 right now is the fact that Corey Mills is our representative, and the fact that too many of his cronies are falsely claiming to represent their districts across the country and are making bad policies for us, which we're paying for out of our pocket and with our lives.
Bale, you are first again. Winning CD7 takes three things: Democrats showing up, NPAs voting blue, and Republicans crossing over. Are your campaigns prepared for the legwork it will take to win? And what steps are you ensuring your team is churning out the vote in this country?
I love this question because most of us here in this room are already aware of what it's going to take. But we have to understand the district that we live in, right? This is a R+5 district, and we are 37% registered Republicans, 33% NPAs, and 30% Democrats. So we know it's going to take much more than just getting Democrats out and in record numbers. We are going to have to make sure that we have the right message and that we have the right policy solutions for our NPA voters who are going to swing this district and many others throughout Florida. I think the exciting thing is we've already seen the theory of the case be proven in a state house flip a couple of months ago, which had basically worse math than we have in CD7, and they were still able to flip it. A state Senate seat that did the same thing. Look, we're going to do a lot of bashing on the incumbent today because he deserves it, because he's not a good representation, not a good representative for us. And one of the reasons it makes him not a good representative is because he's not here. There's so many people that I've met on the doors or in phone calls that are like, this is the first time that my candidate or my representative has even spoken to me. So I think the way that we have to do it is we have got to mobilize every single person in this room, every single person throughout the district, and make phone calls, to put up signs, to knock the doors, because people are desperate for change, and they are desperate to hear from somebody who actually cares about them. Now look, this is an exciting area of Florida right now. Many folks have heard me say we've got this federal district touches 7 state house seats and 3 state senate seats. Our ballots are going to mean more than they ever have in the future of our state and our country, Tallahassee and DC included. And so, yes, not only are we going to have to get the Democrats and the NPAs to swing, but we're going to have to tell Republicans, look, you've got a better choice. You do not have to vote for someone who has no respect for women. You do not have to vote for someone who has no respect for the ethical considerations that they should have while they're sitting on oversight committees overseeing their own business operations. And you do not have to vote for someone who besmirches veterans throughout this country by, the most polite way that I can say it, is exaggerating his own military resume. We have got to tell our Republican friends that you don't have to have that. You can have someone that cares about you. You can have someone that is invested in this community and in this district, and somebody who's going to pick up the phone. And the last thing is, this is a little too processy, but you probably would like to have a representative that other representatives might like to talk to on the phone or have you on their bills so that we can actually get together in a bipartisan way to actually make some policy changes. So look, I think we're going to have lots of good conversations leading up to August 18th. But after August 18th, it's going to take every single one of us to get together to make that change.
He said it perfectly. It's going to take the whole party, the NPAs, the Constitutionalists, the Republicans, the Democrats, to flip this seat. I've been campaigning for over a year now, well over a year. And in that period, I have not just been talking to Democrats. I said it earlier, my team consists of Republicans, Democrats, Independents, NPAs, Constitutionalists, because when people are joining the team, this isn't a movement for Kinter for Congress. This is a movement for every single person who lives in Florida, and they don't have to like the Democratic Party identifier by their name. They have to like the policy that I'm pushing for and the change that we believe in more. They have to like that I want their family to have housing, that I want them to not have to debate whether they can get prescription medication or keep the lights on, that I want their child to grow up and attend public education, charter school, homeschooling, whichever they choose as a parent, and know they will still have access to a high quality American education that ends with them being employable and having real life skills. Every single person that I talk to wants more American trade jobs, and as somebody who got their start in the world as a mechanic, I am pushing for that. They have to like saving the rural boundary and protecting the natural resources Florida offers. And in the past year, every single person that I have talked to, with a few exceptions, has agreed on that. And right now across Seminole and Volusia County, my yard sign is sitting in Republican yards, in NPA yards, in veterans who aren't even registered to vote or weren't until we talked to them because they didn't believe in the system anymore. There is a clear future for Florida, one that incorporates every party, one that has meaningful, improved material conditions for every Floridian. And it is up to us to get out there every day and make that a reality. That's why our team is canvassing six days a week, 5 days a week, multiple times a day, knocking every door in district, calling people constantly, running multiple phone banks, doing mutual aid that uplifts everybody. We are also using our campaign resources to uplift candidates down the ballot and up the ballot, from city commission to U.S. Senate. Because again, this isn't my campaign, this is a movement. And a rising tide lifts all ships. And using that logic and using the proven experience and the deliverables that we have delivered to Floridians to improve the material condition of their lives, we can flip this district, not just to a blue district, to a better district, to one that improves Floridians' lives.
Marialana, you get to answer this first. What is one major issue where you disagree with your party's mainstream position, and why should voters trust your independence rather than fear it?
Can you repeat that one word?
Absolutely. What is one major issue where you disagree with your party's mainstream position, and why should voters trust your independence rather than fear it?
I am going to go against both parties with this. The money that funds our politicians, you cannot separate what somebody wants to do in office by the means they use to get there. Right now, every politician that we have representing congressional districts is bought and paid for. I am proud, extraordinarily proud, for every member of my team, every single person who has donated, volunteered, and we have an average donation of $21, and we've raised over $500,000 that way. Because I want it to be clear from day one that I work for you. I work for the people that aren't in this room. I do not work for corporations. I do not work for lobbyists. And if we're in a room with them, I will never be their favorite candidate. I will never be their favorite representative, because their priorities are not mine. I work for the small business owner down the street, for the public school teacher, for the nurse, for the doctor, for the union organizer. I will never agree with a politician, and I will never see eye to eye with them if they do not want to overturn Citizens United.
Just one major issue?
3 minutes.
There's a lot that we could talk about former failures, and former failures that have unfortunately continued to be extended by folks who find themselves more beholden to a party or to a group of people or God forbid, as Ms. Kinter pointed out, to a donor class. And I do agree that our money in politics is a huge problem. And that means that the rules needs to be changed. And we can change the rules by winning. And so when it comes to money, our campaign is very proud of all of the support that we've gotten across the board. Very proud of the endorsements that we've had by local leaders who know how to win and who know how to serve once they have won. And so the key to making some of the changes that have already been discussed and I'm about to discuss is we have to win. And we cannot fight with any hands tied behind our back so long as we are fighting within the rules, because we know that the current Congress and our current congressman and Corey Mills has gotten there not by playing by the rules, and in fact gotten there on our backs, and that's unacceptable for our representation. Look, I think, we're facing an issue right now where we have the establishment, whether it be Republican or Democrat, or let's just call it for what it is, the DC establishment, that is more concerned with keeping themselves in power than they are with representing the people. They're more concerned with how to make friends, or more concerned with this addiction that they must have to being on TV, or doing rotunda stand-ups, or just, going to sporting events as we've seen, or using our taxpayer monies to fly on planes to visit their girlfriends. This is ridiculous. And money is one of the things that we have got to get out of politics. But the other thing is we've got to be honest with ourselves. As a Democratic Party, we put up a candidate for president for way too long that we knew was not the right man for the job. And I don't mean to bash on the former president. A lot of good things happened there, but we knew as a party that that wasn't serving the people. And so what we need is somebody in the party, somebody that's going to represent us, that will speak truth to power. Because it's been too long for them to have not heard it, and it's been too long for them to not be listening to it. And so, again, I think we've got a choice here of two people who are very interested in being laser focused on what Florida 7 means, what the folks of Seminole and Volusia County need, and to start one seat at a time making that change, because that's what we can control. Let's control what we can control. Let's make sure we win this seat so that we can start to make these changes, because there's a lot of problems that have occurred. Look, we didn't get in this position yesterday. It's been decades in the making.
Vale, will you check your mic and make sure it's working?
Mic check.
Okay. Y'all can hear him? Okay, all right, good. Okay. Vale, you are next, or first. CD7 includes veterans, retirees, working families, and a growing tech sector. Which group do you believe is most underserved right now, and what is your plan to fix that imbalance?
Well, I say all the time, having grown up here and live here, I love our district because of how incredibly diverse it is. If you take a drive like many of us have from all the way far west Seminole County all the way to the Atlantic coast, you're going to have a lot of different conversations on a lot of different topics with a lot of different people. And I think that's what makes us great. I think the things that actually tie us together, whether Republican, Democrat, NPA, whether you're a Seminole County resident or a Volusia County resident, whether you're a veteran retiree or somebody who's just graduated from Embry-Riddle or UCF trying to make their home here and their place in this world, is we have got a government right now who has abandoned us. We have got a government who just doesn't care about the success that anybody of those groups that I've mentioned have had. And so, with respect to the question, I don't want to separate us out. I think there's been too much separating us out. If we want to talk about retirees, folks that have spent their whole life building a nest egg so that they come here to Florida and enjoy their non-working years, they're moving out of our state in droves because the nest egg isn't enough. And the nest egg isn't enough because our prices continue to rise because of bad policies from this administration that have been rubber stamped by our representative. Our representative just voted for a rule for a law just last week that would take benefits away from 1.5 million veterans across the country. We are lucky here in this district to have an incredibly large veteran population who still do a lot for our community in their semi-retirement. You know, I was very proud on Senator Nelson's staff that we were able to get the repairs and refurbishment to the Orlando VA Medical Center over the finish line. But what is still yet to happen is the community-based clinic in Deltona is still waiting on repairs that were appropriated for years ago. And so that's not serving our veteran community, and it's a shame that we have a veteran representative who seems to not understand the importance of this care. And then we talked about the growing tech sector. This is one of the most exciting things that we can offer our young people here. There is so much that Central Florida can do with the Space Coast and with partnerships with the DoD. I talk about, you know, when I was at NASA, I used to say this all the time, and I still do. Every rocket launch starts with one weld or one bolt years ago. That's put in place by somebody who's had the benefit of our incredible trade schools here in Central Florida, including Embry-Riddle. And so I don't like to separate us out, because I think that the real success of this district and the real success of Central Florida as a whole is based on when we're all working together to make sure that every echelon of person, no matter what stage of life they're in, is able to live the life that they want and able to have the opportunity to make things better for those that come behind.
I completely agree. Right now, our politics, our partisan politics, thrives on having a boogeyman. It thrives on dividing us, on telling us that we're the issue against each other when it's not true. The most underserved demographic in Central Florida, in Florida, nationwide, is the working class, regardless of profession. And I know that constantly we are being sold this idea that all of us are closer to Elon Musk, are closer to Peter Thiel, are closer to these tech billionaires, and it's our American dream and we can attain that. But in reality, every single one of us, we're closer to being the single parent in Sanford, raising their children out of the back of their car. We're closer to being the teacher that is paying out of their own pocket for school supplies. And I can tell you, because my teachers did that for me. We are closer, every single one of us, to being homeless than we are being a trillionaire. The most underserved community is always the working class, and that's why they want us to turn against each other. We've seen DEI balloon out of control with accusations, with division, because it's how they make each other, it's how they make us their enemy. We've had political governance that thrives on our fear, on our hatred of each other. But when we allow fear to be the litmus test, when we allow fear to draw the lines, anybody who isn't holding the looking glass becomes the threat. And when we allow the circle of power to become so narrow that any movement seems like defiance, we become their enemy. Even if it's just holding still, even if it's just holding the progress that we've already made. No one in this room is going to be our own enemy. There is one enemy across Central Florida right now. It's Corey Mills. That is the priority, to get him out of office together.
Very good, very good. Would you vote to expand the Supreme Court? And what is your stance on term limits for Congress?
Yes. There's no lead up to that. Yes, we have expanded our judiciary branch. We have expanded our circuit courts. As our population continues to grow, we need to continue to expand that oversight. Tradition is not a good enough reason to hold our community, our nation back. I believe in American innovation. I believe that we should be the leading edge on every front. There's no reason why we should not be. That includes the law. That includes our ability to have governance in our nation, to have checks and balances. For term limits, I also believe in term limits. Any person who runs for federal office has the opportunity to sign a term limits pledge. I have signed it. And I've heard the argument before that the only time a politician is good is when they're worried about re-election. And that just means we are electing the wrong people. We need to be electing people who believe that public service is service and a privilege, not people who are too scared to lose their job to stand up for what is right. I will not serve more than 3 terms because it is supposed to be the people's house. I have signed that term limits pledge. It is supposed to be the most dynamic, changing branch constantly. You're supposed to be on the ground 24/7 advocating for the people that are electing you. You cannot convince me that someone who's been in office for 45, 50 years has changed and is as dynamic as the group that they're supposed to be representing. And that's how we continue to fall further behind. In term limits, not just for Congress, for the Supreme Court, for every federal position.
Yeah, to start with term limits, I agree. You've already heard me talking about the fact that with the problem that we have in Congress right now is folks who are unable to police themselves. And we already know, too, that too often the power of the incumbency and whatever power brokers that they've been able to cull together to support their addiction to power is very hard to overcome. So yes, I do think we need term limits now in today's day and age until we can start to get some of these other things that we've mentioned corrected, which is the money in politics and the overbearing power of certain establishment entities that are too concerned, again, with holding on to power or this addiction to being famous or this addiction, in the case of our congressman, of what I call failing up. You know, if you're no good at anything you've ever done in your life, you ought not be a congressperson. And so, yeah, I think term limits are something that we need to get in place so that we can start reminding people who they actually work for. And the fact that they should be earning that vote and earning that trust every day of their service in elected office. Now, as far as the Supreme Court goes, I agree that we have had in different times in our government the ability to expand different courts. I think the argument here is that we have a judicial system which is also somewhat broken. We have seen it take so long to get judges confirmed, sometimes because those judges ought not be confirmed. But we have seen judges with caseloads that mean that we are losing basic civil liberties of right to speedy trial, of folks that are being held incarcerated because they can't afford bail while they're waiting on some mandatory sentence that the Congress has decided to take away from the power of the judges that ought to be there. But I also want to focus on what can be done. And in order to make changes like that, we are going to have a huge bipartisan group together in both the House and the Senate. And what that's going to depend on is us winning these seats. And what that's going to depend on is taking some of these conversations that we like and we like to talk about. We have to remove the sloganeering and we have to go talk to the people that say, if you elect someone like us that's a real representative of you, then we will be trying to make the changes in Congress and get the right groups and coalitions together that can actually get this done. Because it's going to take a whole lot more than the majorities that happen to be in Congress now or the majorities that we may get in November to get something like that done. And so I want to make sure that we are taking care, like, look, I was a medical evacuation pilot, right? When you're bleeding, you got to stop the bleeding. There is a whole lot of trauma occurring right now that needs to be fixed on day one. But we should be thinking about these bold changes to make our country a better place once we get the bleeding stopped.
That's okay. We're giving you your calisthenics. Political polarization is at historic heights. We've spoken about that this evening. What is one message you would give to voters who do not trust you, do not agree with you, and may never vote for you, showing you can represent them anyway?
I've told this story before, but I like it, so I'm going to tell it again. When I was working for Senator Nelson, I already mentioned that veteran services is really the purview of the folks working in the state, right? District directors trying to solve cases for when people bring them to them. But when the problem got too big, or the person with the problem was unsatisfied with the answers that they were getting, sometimes they would come up to me. And I had a phone call with somebody that started with, "Are you Dale Dalton?" "Yes, I am." "Do you work for Senator Nelson?" "Yes, I do." And the rest of the conversation was, "I'm a Republican. I've never voted for your boss. I don't want to work for your boss. Or I don't want to vote for your boss, but I have a problem." I said, "All right, sir, tell me what the problem is." And he was a veteran that was, had a problem with their benefits. I did what I do on behalf of the senator, and we got that problem fixed, which I was pretty excited about because you never get a call back. And he said, "Look," he said, "I don't know if I'm ever going to vote Democrat, but what I do want to say is thank you. Because I called the other guy for 18 months and couldn't get a response." And so I think that either of the two of us up here are going to commit to answering that phone, to solving this casework, to being good representatives for the people, no matter who they are, no matter whether they came to Florida yesterday or are 6 generations, no matter if they voted Republican or Democrat. When I was doing medical evacuations, I didn't stop and ask, "Are you a Republican or a Democrat?" before I provided life-saving care. That's what we have to get away from. And I think too often, especially now as we're entering, political election season, too often, we are, as voters and as candidates sometimes, put in these boxes to have an opinion on one divisive issue or another that's frankly been invented by either the news corporations or these politicians that are addicted to power that want to stay in to get us fighting with each other and to make us divisive. I already said before, I'm tired of being told to hate my neighbor. That's not how we operate here in America, and that's not how we operate in our communities and neighborhoods. So to folks that I'm out there on the doors or on the phones with trying to earn their trust, those are the stories that I tell. I'm here for you. This is, again, an emotional journey, as I started off saying, right? This is my home. These are people that I love. I had plenty of great teachers in my life who did not agree with me politically. One of them's even contributed to my campaign, so I must be making some kind of effort there and bridging the divide. So I think it's innately important for anything that we want to do to go back to we the people creating a more perfect union. That has to be we the people, all of us together. Now we know in this room that there are plenty of folks that are never going to listen, and there are plenty of folks who are never going to be convinced. So I think what we have to do out there is continue to try to earn trust through authenticity.
When I launched my campaign last May, and some people will remember this because the Volusia and the Port Orange and the Deltona Beach Club were some of the first I talked to. I said I wasn't going to ask for their vote. I said I wouldn't ask for their donation. I would not ask for their support until I could prove what I can deliver for the district, for the people who live here, for the people who are going to be casting that vote. And I spent the last year doing exactly that. And after the first 6 months, when the time came, and I said, "I'd like you to sign my petition so I can get on the ballot," I qualified for the ballot via petition because people saw. We launched the campaign with a food drive, not a partisan effort, not a grandstand, not a party, a food drive on the main street of Sanford outside of a bookstore. Because we've seen political parties, politicians, candidates use it as a grift, as a way to make money, as a way to get to their next stepping stone, as a way of a promotion. This entire campaign has, again, been uplifting the entire community. We have done multiple clothing drives for homeless veterans, for single mothers, for anyone in the community who needed it. Not for Republicans, not for Democrats, not for any single group, just anyone in Central Florida. Even coming up, we have a luggage drive. Attend it if you have any other luggage that you guys need to get rid of. Because that's what it's about. It's about Central Floridians coming together and creating change. And part of that is what I said earlier, where I said I have yard signs in Republican yards right now. Because when I talk to people and we talk about the issues, I don't want them to vote for me because I'm a Democrat. I tell them, if you're not going to vote for me, go home, do your research, vote for whoever aligns with your morality. Because right now we have an integrity crisis. And the only way to fix that is to not compromise on your morality. And many times they come back and they tell me, well, I didn't think I'd ever say this about a Democrat. But you have my vote. Because I don't want to vote for you. I want to vote for me. I want to vote for whatever candidate is looking out for my family, looking out for my rights, my personal liberties. And that's why I want, if anyone in this room is going to vote for me, that's why I want them to vote. Because I want your family to have improvement. Because I want Florida to be successful, not because I want to hold office. Office was not on my mind until after I got doged. It was not on my bucket list to be running for office, living in a house with 8 other people, every single day, starting the morning, 7 a.m. to 9, lit dropping, going around, walking around in the sun was not on my bucket list. But if we're going to seek improvement, it has to be because we are uniting for the right beliefs.
That is the conclusion of the pre-written questions we have. You both have been excellent custodians of time, so we appreciate that. We do have just a few minutes, not a whole bunch of minutes. We might have to limit it to maybe 2 or 3 questions, and we will limit candidates' response time to 1 minute. Carol, 1 minute response time. If anyone attending tonight has a question that was not addressed or answered, please raise your hand. Patricia will come around, and you can direct it at one or both of the candidates, and candidates 1 minute response, please. Please remember you will still have your 3 minutes to wrap up and mention anything perhaps that you've not. Yes, sir.
What's your position on public housing and housing first programs?
Is that directed to each candidate?
Yeah.
Public housing is often used as a catch-all term. We'd have to get very specific in determining what we're talking about. If we're talking about federal grants being directed to the state, if we're talking about incentives on a federal level, if we're talking about coordinating with the state legislation on grants that already exist to ensure that it's used properly. But again, I think it comes down to the fact that housing is a human right. People cannot function, they cannot hold jobs. Students cannot learn without a roof over their head. We need to make improvements, and I believe that doesn't just start with public housing. It starts by ensuring that the homes that exist in Florida, because we do have an overdevelopment, the solution isn't just planting houses endlessly in Florida. It's making sure the houses that exist are being bought and sold by the families that live in Florida. And that's the first step when we're talking about public housing, is to address the reality that we live in now, to correct the deficiencies that exist.
Yeah, I think anytime that we can have a conversation about a real solution to a problem, I think one area where we might disagree slightly is, I don't know that I agree that our supply of housing is where it should be. But I certainly agree that overdeveloping and overzealous developers that are playing outside the rules through contributions to Tallahassee are a big part of the problem. And another big part of the problem, as already discussed by both of us, is, again, venture capital and private equity buying up a basic right and then overcharging folks to have access to that right. So I would agree that I think public housing is a part and parcel of a larger solution. But we have to make sure that that public housing is not being used against our communities and being used as a divisive issue. These should be homes that people can live in safely and that can be part of the community and neighborhood that they're supposed to be a part of. So that, again, we are not arguing over one thing or another here in our community and neighborhood while the developers get rich and the politicians don't have good solutions.
Gentleman up front, Patricia.
What do you think of some of the different efforts to reverse Citizens United and to get money out of politics?
For both of us?
For both.
Well, I think that the current efforts are not good enough because we haven't done anything to actually overturn it. I think both of us have mentioned the fact that, Congress has too often abdicated its responsibility to the people. And one of the things that really irritates me is that some of the only legislation that you can get across is very vague. And in order to get it to be bipartisan, you don't even actually address the problem somehow. So I think we need a very simple, very blatant, these are the things that are not allowed, get it signed into law, and then we can go forward. And the reason why I mention this vagaries as the problem is because we've seen too often when we leave it to the judicial branch to try to interpret the intent of Congress, this is how we've gotten into this problem in the first place, with money being treated as speech. And not just money being treated as speech in Citizens United in our political contest, but the recent Supreme Court decision which has said that all money is speech no matter where it comes from or where it's being passed through.
What will you do to get money out of politics in light of Citizens United? I hope that's what I said before.
I think I've been very clear on this. We need to overturn Citizens United. There is not a path forward towards improvement while every conversation in politics is controlled by money. There just is not. We can and will win across the nation without serving corporations. To say there is not is to dismiss every American voter who is casting a vote. It is to dismiss every working class family across the nation. We must overturn Citizens United, and it needs to be a priority because it's holding our nation hostage. American voters and their voices cannot be drowned out by corporations, by Wall Street, by tech billionaires anymore. And it's up to us to ensure that comes to fruition. Cast your vote for whichever candidate you identify with so we can do that. Thank you.
We will have time for probably two more. The lady here, and then you had your hand up first.
I have a very simple question. It would be a yes or no answer. After the primary, will you work or with the winning candidate?
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes my voice with a microphone can be too much. We talked a lot about money so far this evening. Corporations weighing in and Citizens United. My question has to do with the really disgusting stock trading. And not even let's be honest, not even just stock trading. It's like betting. And it's going on amongst our representatives, and they are not only taking in money from corporate lobbyists and things like that, but they're also trading on insider information while they're in office. And I don't know about you, I've never traded a stock because I've never had that kind of wealth. So I'm curious, this is for both of you, what will you do to help stop that? And, will you be trading stocks while you're in office if you are elected?
I will not be trading stocks while in office. That's the bare minimum. Let's call it what it is, insider trading. And if anyone else did it, they would be arrested. They would be investigated. They would probably serve time in prison. It's not acceptable for congressional representatives to do it just because they're in power. And despite what the Speaker of the House says, I promise you they make enough money to live comfortably. They do not have to be benefiting on the economies they are controlling and making the regulations for. We have to ban congressional stock trading, and that includes prediction markets, because we have people who are in office who have made a disgusting amount of money on war plans moments before we executed missions. And I think I speak for both of us as veterans. One, violation of OPSEC, and two, a disgusting performance of bad character. Our congressional reps need to be held to the same standard as every single person they are representing.
Yeah, you already know the answer. It's a hard agree. So I want to just expand on the answer because I think there's more to it. Well, first of all, it's the pledges that we signed in our ballot qualification paperwork. They're public. Check them out. I check the box. I will not be trading individual stocks either. There is another avenue where you can get into a qualified blind trust. This has come up with our Congressman Corey Mills, who is gaslighting us and saying he uses a blind trust when he does not. All he does is change what he writes on the top of his disclosure forms, which, I mean, how stupid does he think we are? But to expand, because again, we're a hard agree on this. So we've seen Congress not be able to police it. Insider trading is already against the law. Why are these folks not being held accountable for it? And so since they can't hold themselves accountable for it, we need a ban. And the other thing too, you guys have heard, I've seen some familiar faces, so many have heard this before, but the other disgusting thing about trading and basically putting our troops' lives at risk through sharing operational security problems, I see my stop sign, here's my last sentence. When people were betting on whether or not the pilot and weapons systems officer of the airplanes that were shot down in Iran, when they were betting whether or not they would come home alive or not, that's not who we are. And anybody who thinks that is needs to be out of office.
Thank you all for your questions, and candidates, thank you for your receptiveness to answer spontaneous questions from the group. We do want to offer our candidates 3 minutes each to give their closing remarks and perhaps close any loop that they may have for a question or comment that was made. Marialana, you started first. Marialana, I'm sorry. So, Bale, we will give you the option to give your closing remarks first. Carol, they will have 3 minutes for their closing remarks.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for being here, because it is folks like you who are going to actually make the change through your votes. And to be talking to your communities and neighbors, even those tough conversations with that neighbor that you try to avoid when they're in the driveway, because you don't want to talk politics. The situation is too dire for that. We have got to be telling people, especially here in Seminole and Volusia County, that they have a better choice. They are going to have a better choice in November. I like that we talked a lot about how we are going to reach out beyond this room to make sure that we take advantage of this opportunity. Look, you guys have heard our bios, you've heard about us, we've talked about ourselves, which is probably both of our least favorite thing to do. But this is a very personal journey for me. I was born and raised here. This area of Central Florida has given me everything. It's been a life in public service. I'm asking for your vote to continue doing that public service and provide responsible representation to us here in DC. And I'm very proud of the coalition that we have already built here. We have got former leaders and former Senator Nelson, former Congresswoman Val Demings and Stephanie Murphy, who led a big part of this district previously. Local leaders like Senator LaVon Gracie Davis and Representative Rashawn Young. These are folks who know how to win. They are folks who know how to do the job once they've won. And again, very proud to have built that type of coalition. Because what it's going to come down to is us all banding together to make sure that we do not let this opportunity pass us by. We have to win. The situation is too dire, not just in Florida, but in our nation. And if we don't tell the nation that the people of Central Florida can come together across party lines, across all the different diverse things that we do for work, the reasons why we live here and the reasons why we came here, if we don't tell the nation that somebody like Corey Mills can be removed from office through our vote, then we've let the whole country down. Everybody in this room knows how important it is. We have got to get out there and make sure that other folks know and take this energy and motivation and excitement that we have and make sure that we spread that throughout our state and our country. I've already talked about how exciting it is to have so many great candidates up and down this ballot. In Florida, we finally have the chance for some hope at the statewide level to break the supermajority in Tallahassee and to finally get responsible representation in D.C. The fact that this is, 20 of one party to 8 of the other, and a state that we know, if we grew up here, is not a red state, not a blue state either. We're a state of people who are proud to be Floridians. We deserve so much better than what we have right now, and it is in our hands to make that choice. I also appreciate the question of what are we going to do after August 18th? What are we going to do after August 18th? We're going to band together to do the very thing that I just talked about, to send a message to those in Tallahassee and those in D.C. that we're not going to take it anymore.
Thank you guys for coming tonight, first and foremost. And I like what you ended with, that after August 18th, we're going to band together. But I'm going to take it a step further. We don't have to wait until August 18th. We can do that now. As soon as you leave this room, you can do that today. You can band behind whichever candidate you identify with, and you can make that change. Because we all agree the representation that we have is not good. But we don't want better. We want the best possible representation that we can have. That is why, for the past year and continue to go forward every single day, I will fight unapologetically to deliver tangible results that improve your life. I will fight unapologetically for investments in public education, investments in trade jobs, in trade certification programs so our children are employable when they graduate high school, to fight to lower the cost of university education, to stabilize the homeowners insurance market, to protect the rural boundary, to invest in our foster care system, to ensure the families that live here can buy homes here, and to ensure that Florida remains protected with our environment, our natural resources, and every single person who lives here, which is arguably the most important resource that Florida has. I will continue to do that both in office, because we have people here in district who are working 40, 60, 70 hours a week to provide for their family. We deserve a representative who works just as hard as the hardest working person here. And from sunrise to sunset every single day, that will always be my priority, to ensure that we fight for meaningful policy improvements and that we pass legislation that improves the conditions of Floridians' lives. Because we cannot forget, Congress is doing a lot of things, but they aren't doing their job to introduce and pass legislation and policy and govern with integrity and accountability. We cannot forget that is the role of Congress. And that is one that if you vote for me, I will ensure we accomplish 100% of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, very much for your participation tonight. Don't go away. Thank you all for showing up. This shows that each of you is invested in the success in this election season, and you all have made it your business to educate yourselves on the candidates so that you can make the best choice that is for you. And I will give a shameless plug. If you all have identified with a candidate that speaks with you, I am sure they would appreciate a donation to their campaign, because these campaigns do not run on air. So if you can see fit to contribute to the candidate of your choice, I'm sure they would appreciate that as well. We do have a couple of housekeeping things. These two candidates have stepped out on a limb and exposed themselves and are working themselves to the bone for you. And what we need to do is we need to work equally hard. So there are many roles in the election that you can take. Barbara, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a minute. Barbara, can you stand up for just a second, please? You know, I never assume people know the process, because as old as I am and as long as I have been voting every election season, I am learning something new. So I'm going to give you a little quick lesson. We've got 3 different positions that each of us could fill at least 1, 2, or all 3. Position 1 is what we call poll greeters. Those are the happy people that sit in the little tent outside the 150-foot location at all of the polling sites to be a source of information to any voter that may be coming to the polls to vote. That's your poll greeter, okay? Then you have your poll watcher. Those are the people who go into the polling site and sit and observe. They are watching for voter intimidation. They are watching to make sure protocol and practice is followed as it should be, and they are reporting any deficiency that is seen. Now, to be a poll watcher, you must go through a training, and you must get credentials through the supervisor's office. We are going, I'm part of Northwest Volusia Democratic Club. On Thursday, this coming Thursday, July 23rd, at our Northwest Volusia Democratic meeting, 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, we will have the attorney there who does the poll watcher training. If you come to that meeting, you will get the training. Your information will be submitted to the supervisor's office, and you can get credentialed to be a poll watcher. This is only for the primaries. We have to know it's for both. We can do it for both. So if you qualify for this time, it can be for the primary and the general election in November. Okay? That is something you can do. I have been a poll greeter. I have been a poll watcher. And this year, for the first time, I'm going to be a poll worker. I have retired. It's on my bucket list that I said I'm going to do it, because when I was a poll watcher, I was intrigued to watch those poll workers. And I thought, man, I want to do that. So I bit the bullet. Lisa Lewis talked me into it. I'm going to training, and I'm going to be a poll worker, which means I'll be one of those little people that check you in and give you your ballot. And I have also, I'm so excited to say, worked today at the supervisor's office doing a menial job, but for me, I was so excited. I separated ballots for the, what do they call that? Help me out. Well, the mail-in ballots, you work in teams. I'm telling you, whoever thinks that there's voter fraud needs their head examined. Because the process that is done and followed is amazing. I separated ballots, counted ballots, worked in a team. It just was absolutely intriguing. So this is another part of my life, but each of us can do this. And for our process to continue and to work, we need each of us to step up and take a role and do all of this. Yes, sir.
For people in Seminole that want to do those jobs, see me or Mike. We're signing people up too.
And then Barbara for Volusia County
Hello?
is up front there.
I want to, really quickly, I'd like to thank Rosemary and Patricia for doing this. My name is Ron, and I'm the president of the Southwest Democrats, who kind of organized this thing. Thank you. Woo! Thank you, candidates. As I say at every meeting, please fall in love with the candidate so that you can help them win this election. And hopefully when the primary is over, we all get together